Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Michigan on the recruiting trail going into this spring visit window period. It has the opportunity to really get some real momentum over the next couple of weeks and months. And, we've been talking about this idea of Michigan just operating differently on the recruiting trail. There's no better example than what we're about to see play out for Michigan over the next couple of weeks and months. Where go back 12 months ago, as Michigan was entering spring practice in 2024, you probably had around 10 blue chip prospects that visited Michigan in the spring months. You fast forward to where Michigan is right now going into this year in the spring, 2025. Michigan is scheduled to, it's pushing over 40, not just prospects. You're pushing over 40 blue chip prospects in the 2026 class that will be on campus for Michigan at some point during the spring. Now, we're not going to get into every single name that's going to be on campus. That'd probably take us 2 hours to do. But I do want to focus on some of the more intriguing storylines that we're going to see play out for Michigan as it pertains to the recruiting trail. We're going to start at the quarterback position, which, look, I understand it's crazy that we're having the conversation of, hey, what quarterback, what direction might Michigan go in terms of who's going to take over after Bryce Underwood. And Bryce Underwood hasn't even taken a snap for Michigan, but that's kind of how the recruiting trail works, where you're building for the future. This is really intriguing because Michigan is, with Chip Lindsey at the helm of the offense, Michigan's going to be swinging a very big stick when it comes to finding their quarterback of the future after Bryce Underwood. And to the Michigan fans who are listening to this, the Michigan fans who are dialed into the recruiting trail, would love to hear what direction you would like to see Michigan go in terms of the quarterback for life after Bryce Underwood. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We say this all the time, but the amount of support the Michigan fans have shown the fellas as we've talked in the February, March months of the recruiting trail. It's been a blast for me as a Michigan fan who loves talking the recruiting trail. Can't thank you guys enough for rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it now. What it seems like is turning out for Michigan is there's kind of a couple of different options that Michigan could go in the 2026 class. And we said this when Bryce Underwood committed to us in 2025. It was probably going to be difficult for Michigan to land a premier quarterback in the 2026 class because a lot of these elite quarterbacks probably don't want to follow a guy like Bryce Underwood where they know they're sitting the bench for 2 years until Bryce Underwood moves on to the NFL. You already saw that with Brady Hart, who was committed to Michigan in 2026, flip his commitment to Texas A&M. The one intriguing name in the 2026 cycle is five-star quarterback Lyons. And this has been a fascinating recruitment to follow where, as Michigan fans who follow the recruiting trail pretty closely, we saw Chip Lindsey, Sherrone Moore, pretty much the whole offensive staff for Michigan go out to the state of California in January and visit Lyons. And I think we said, that's cool that Michigan's going to take a swing at Lyons, but I don't think a lot of us thought that was a very realistic possibility. You fast forward to where we sit in early March with Oregon turning it up for Jerry Curtis. Sounds like they might land Jerry Curtis. USC flips Jonas Williams from Oregon. Those were kind of the two main contenders for Lyons. All of a sudden, the quarterback dominoes are falling in a way where Michigan sounds like they have a real shot at a guy like Lyons, and it sounds like Michigan really wants Lyons in this class. Now, what's fascinating about Lyons is he's essentially a 2027 guy. He's going to graduate in the 2026 class, but he's going to take a 18-month Latter-day Saints mission trip. So essentially enrolling with Michigan in 2027, which makes a ton of sense for Michigan, right? Because you're saying, all right, you're going to come in for Bryce Underwood's last year. You'll take a red shirt to play a little bit behind Bryce Underwood, and then you going into year two is probably the year you'll take over the Michigan offense. And I think for Lyons, that's probably pretty dang intriguing for Lyons to say, all right, I got to sit 1 year behind Bryce Underwood. He goes to the NFL draft, and I take over this offense. It makes sense from a timetable standpoint, too. And I really do think that this is a really important conversation for Michigan to have, where you go back to when Michigan landed JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy was awesome for Michigan. The problem was once we landed the commitment to JJ McCarthy, it became difficult to recruit quarterbacks over the next couple of cycles. And obviously, Michigan's failure to recruit solid quarterbacks and kind of played out in some really bad quarterback play in 2024. The other option Michigan could go to is just, hey, we're going to look at some 2027 guys, right? Trey Taylor is probably the most popular name. I think a lot of Michigan fans really like Trey Taylor. And I think what's intriguing about Trey Taylor is we know what it's going to look like come June 6th. That's when he's committing. And it sounds like Michigan's got a real shot at a guy like Trey Taylor, where there's a lot to like with this kid. 6'3", really big frame, still probably has to fill out the frame a little bit, but it's a live arm. And he's played a lot of football in the state of Illinois. I'm a fan of Trey Taylor. I think both Ryder Lyons and Trey Taylor would be really intriguing options. And then the last name, I think this one is probably a long shot as we sit right now. And it's kind of how we talked about Ryder Lyons 2 months ago as well, is Elijah Haven, who is the number one prospect in the 2027 class. This kid, talk about physical gifts. You talk about checking every single box you could possibly check from a physical standpoint at the quarterback spot. Elijah Haven has it. He's an elite athlete, throws off platform, really big time arm. Probably some development that still needs to take place, which makes sense as he's only going into his junior year this fall. But man, you talk about the same physical traits we talked about when Bryce Underwood was coming up from high school. Elijah Haven has very similar traits. Now, he's right in LSU's backyard. LSU is not going to let this kid out of state without a real good fight. But, Elijah Haven's going to take a spring visit to Michigan. And then again, this is one of the things that stands out to me the most is Michigan's not backing down to anybody on the recruiting trail. Go back a couple of years ago. I don't know if Michigan would have taken a swing at Ryder Lyons or taken a swing at a guy like Elijah Haven, just because Michigan didn't operate this way 3-4 years ago. Now you're seeing Michigan in a spot where they're not afraid to go down to the state of Louisiana and go head to head with Brian Kelly and LSU for the top quarterback in the country, or go out to the state of California out west and go after Ryder Lyons, another 5-star quarterback in the 2026 class. My personal opinion is Ryder Lyons, because one, I think the way the quarterback dominoes have fallen over the last couple of weeks, I think there's that opportunity for Michigan to really build some traction, especially if you have a really good visit with Ryder Lyons in the spring. And I love Ryder Lyons as a football player. Now, I get that the mission trip could maybe impact some Michigan fans and how they view Ryder Lyons, because historically you've seen guys take the mission trip and maybe not exactly hit the ground running when they come back to football. I think Ryder Lyons is too good to pass up. He's an arm that you just want to go out and bet on. And especially having that year to sit while Bryce Underwood finishes out his career at Michigan, to me, makes the most amount of sense. And Ryder Lyons has been very vocal during this recruitment process that he wants to play early. So that's kind of my take on the quarterback spot. It seems like Michigan, in terms of recruiting quarterbacks, again, it much better spot with Chip Lindsey as the offensive coordinator than where we were 12 months ago. Couple other names that I want to mention. It kind of goes to the line of scrimmage. And as long as Sherrone Moore is running this program, there's going to be a lot of resources dumped into recruiting the line of scrimmage at the high school ranks, which, look, I'm a massive fan of. You look at how Michigan won a national championship in 2023. It was dominating the line of scrimmage. You look at, in my opinion, the most important position to get right recruiting the high school ranks, it's offensive line play. Because you look at it and say, look, if you miss on bodies on the offensive line and you don't recruit the offensive line well enough out of the high school ranks, it's a very difficult position to go address in the transfer portal, because there's just not that many starting caliber offensive linemen that hit the portal. And it seems like every program is looking for starting offensive linemen in the transfer portal as well. Couple of names to keep an eye on. Darius Gray has emerged as probably my favorite interior offensive lineman in the cycle. 6'3", 285, extremely powerful kid, basketball background, and you see that athleticism on the film. 34-inch arms. You're talking about a guy that, he's a little bit shorter at 6'3", but has 34-inch arms, and you should play with good pads and have good length. So it's a really good combination, especially for interior offensive lineman, blue chip guy that would start for a multi-year starter for Michigan on the inside of the offensive line. Another name that I just buzzed this morning that I am a massive fan of. Michigan fans, write this name down. If you follow the recruiting trail closely, highly encourage, just buzz a little bit of Samuel's film. Samuel Rosenborough. This kid is incredible from Clearwater, Florida. Now he's listed as an interior offensive lineman, plays tackle at the high school ranks. I think he's a tackle. He's really comfortable in his pass pro sets. He's a really good athlete coming out of the stands. He looks like he's a relatively long kid as well. There's not a ton of information on him, but I turn on the film and say, that's a great frame with elite athleticism. This is a kid I would bet on every single day of the week. And yeah, he might play guard for you, but he certainly has tackle athleticism, at least from what I saw in the film. This is a guy that I would bet on every single day of the week. Last name that I want to mention, Malachi Lee, where it seemed like Michigan for a while was leading for him. Now it sounds like USC has grabbed the momentum. I think that has a lot to do with proximity, right? Kid from Hawaii, a lot closer to USC than Michigan. Get him back on campus in the spring. See if you can grab back some of that momentum in this recruiting process, because I really like Malachi Lee. He's a guy that basketball background, he's taller than 6'6", at least from what I've seen. He's probably close to 6'7", 320. Really smooth athlete for the size, prototypical tackle build with the athleticism. This is another one of those blue chip tackles that you want to stockpile away in your high school recruiting classes. Flipping over to the defensive line really quick, couple other names I want to mention. Trenton Henderson, kind of a unique kid where he played off-ball linebacker a little as he was younger, has continued to put on weight, coming a little bit more off the edge, kind of normally in the stand-up wide nine look. Man, he is a juiced up athlete with an elite first step, a ton of power in his hands. He checks about every single box you're looking for as an edge rusher. And he looks bigger than 225, and he certainly plays bigger than 225. A little bit of a, Michigan pretty, rigid with their four-man front. And so maybe the fit is a little funky. But at the end of the day, I don't think you would have a problem putting on 25 more pounds, getting him up to 250 pounds, and having him be just a 3-point edge, hand in the dirt edge rusher for you. Really, really, really fascinating kid from the state of Florida. And then Carter Meadows, a guy that we talked about, David Ajabo Jr. to me, 6'6", 215. Doesn't really know what he's doing as a football player just yet, but a freaky, freaky athlete. Great first step, long arms, all the same things that we talked about David Ajabo. He's not a guy that comes in immediately and plays. Similar to David Ajabo, you sit 2 years, you barely hear of him for 2 years, then all of a sudden he's the best pass rusher in the Big Ten. Carter Meadows, very similar kind of prospect. Those are some of my favorite names that stand out to me. Obviously, Jackson Cantwell remains the top target for Michigan in 2026. We will, as the visit weekend start to take place, we will cover those players individually, but wanted to hop on early and say, just kind of get a sense of where Michigan might be going on the recruiting trail over the next couple of weeks and months. Again, to the Michigan fans, appreciate you guys. Been a blast talking this program. Been a blast talking this program on the recruiting trail, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.